It's been an interesting few months. Great guitar build-off kind of destroyed me. And I'm getting back into things a little bit slowly. But this came up, and I thought, hey, this could be quite interesting. I have a tiny little case. Well, you've already seen the title. I've got a Banjolele. Can you believe it? And this thing, it needs a little bit of help. One of the strings is sounding a little bit weird. It's the nut, almost certainly. I'm going to clean it up, sort the frets out a little bit, and put it together. The case appears to have been sat on by a muddy cat at some point and is also falling apart, so I'll do a little bit of that too. Welcome to Crimson Guitars. Welcome to my home studio, and welcome to the Banjolele story. Burn it. Haha! Yay! Ben. Weird sounding second string from the top. The friction tuners slipped back, so I put a bit of card in them. Do with it what you will. It's actually quite cool. So it's Keech, Banjolele banjo with a patent number. It's a funky, funky little thing. And yeah, I don't have new strings for it. We're just going to do what it is. So the problem is almost certainly that the nut is just a little bit worn and needs to be recut a bit. I'm going to sort the frets out and clean everything, basically. First of all, fret rocker. Let's see what's happening here. Well, there's a problem there, isn't there? Okay. Wow. Okay, so I would suggest that this has been refretted at some point, and I would say that because we've got that damage next to that dot. It looks like they've been pulled out and essentially there's damage there. It may just be bad workmanship or somebody added that dot after the fact, but I'm doubting myself now. Either way, the frets are diabolically bad. So here's my next issue. This is all pretty high up, and if I wanted to level the frets, that's going to bump and damage that. So I'm going to take this thing apart. Was that good photography? Videography? Camera work? I doubt it. So with the tops of the frets marked, I can now see what's low using a leveling file. So the low spots are where I haven't removed any permanent marker. Now the fretboard is flat, the neck has no truss rod in it and is relatively straight. We're working without the traditional flexibility that one has with a guitar and a truss rod and all of that jazz. But the end result is going to be pretty awesome, I hope. Gently does it. So that fret is still high, which is interesting. They're all properly seated. So, second pass. I'm going to move on to a leveling beam and just go slowly and gently. That'll do it. Low spot, and there. Yeah. Success, I say, success. Now I'm doing this repair for a friend, so I'm sort of going over and above, to be honest. But I would like to sort out the dots here, and I'm going to use Starbond black because this stuff is great. Should I do this while I'm holding the camera? Too late. How do those surgeons do it? Anyway, this stuff is incredible. I absolutely love it. And heartily endorse you to go to crimsonguitars.com and get it. Or, if you're in America, use the coupon below. Leave that to cure, and on with the frets. Next job is going to be permanent marker again and a crown. So fret rubbers work on wood as well. It's a very, very fine abrasive. I'm using the medium just to normalize this. I'm not going for absolute perfection. It's a vintage instrument. We don't want it to be perfect. These are so low. The frets are absolutely tiny. So I'm crowning like so, trusting that the edges on the Crimson Guitars crowning file are nice and safe, and knowing that I can fix it after the fact. So the trick here is to pick an angle and stick with it all the way along, same angle on the other side, and essentially we're creating a flat-topped pyramid. And with larger frets, you then pick a slightly different angle and do those two. You bisect everything and then you end up with a curve when you polish it. Trying to round them over as you go, like so, that does not always end well. These are the tiniest frets I've ever worked with, actually, or at least in memory. Now, I would normally have masked off the fretboard with masking tape if I was on a guitar or something with a fretboard in better condition, but ebony and this old and this used, there's no evidence. In fact, it's in a better off condition than it was before. I am now going to... Fight me in the comments if you fancy it. I'm going to polish the frets. 500. I'm holding this at an angle and it's bumping over everything. Rounding it over, sanding it. A quick way to do this job. Onto the medium fret rubber. Fine. Super fine. Clean up. And restorative. So we leave this to soak in for 5 or 10 minutes and I will rub off the excess and we're done with this stage of this job. And that looks really rather nice. The user interface is dealt with. I am going to now use the fretboard and finish cleaner and essentially just give this poor thing a bit of a wipe and a clean down and yeah, it needs it. Time has not been kind. This is fun. right, now let's have a look at these. This nut. Look at how high those strings are. This is just, yeah, that is massive. Now on top of that, the string's not sounding particularly good, and that's because the nut slots themselves are not right. And yeah, I'll show you a quick thing. If a nut slot is not angled back with the headstock, or if the string is too loose, which is the case there, you'll often find that it's not seated properly. This is also far too deep. And if you have a thumbnail and hold it on the string, you'll hear a difference. I will use the back of a scalpel blade. You hear the difference there? And that's because that nut slot is sort of curved, and instead of the intonation point being the front of the nut, it's somewhere in the middle, and the string is just vibrating where it's not supposed to be. Now I'm quite lucky, these slots have room for play. And I can use my nut slotting files to, you know, lower them down to something a little bit more sensible, shall we say. Now, just in the interest of keeping the look and all that, I'm not going to file down the top of the nut. I'm not going to pretend that it's a new nut. I'm just going to, well, remove about 1 millimeter of height at the nut. The same applies to the bridge and the angle. Now this whole mechanism here is much higher and the bridge much higher. You don't have what would be called a good action on a guitar, but that's just part of the design of this instrument. I could lower the whole thing down and play around, but it wouldn't have the right tension, and I'm not going to do that. I am, however, just going to have a quick play here. Whoops. And we're just pushing the intonation point to the point of the bridge or the saddle where it is actually leaving it, rather than somewhere in the middle. I'm doing it very gently as well. Probably, do you know what, let's take this off and do it in a vise. Much better. All right, this is an interesting old instrument, and I've got to fiddle about with the intonation. You always do, but that's just a case of moving the saddle, the bridge, the bridge saddle, the brattle, around a bit, and we will be there. We have the right sound on each string, and a good volume and all that jazz. It could probably do with some new strings, and I don't like the fact that it's designed with an action that is that high. Really, it needs a complete neck reset. I would, in order to get an action that's utterly playable and perfectly in tune across the whole length of the fretboard, I would need to reset the neck so that it lines up properly with the bridge. I'm not going to do that today. But as it is, it's fun. And it plays. Whereas before, it didn't really. So, yeah. I think that was the worst fret job I've ever actually experienced. Ever. You know what I mean. I've never seen a fret job that bad. Click like, subscribe, let me know if you want to see more repairs or more strange instruments on the channel. And I am going to be moving on to Nebula next week. Talitha and I both needed a bit of a break from the insanity that has been the past, actually 4 or 5 months really, but we are back on task. See you soon. Goodbye. Ah! I completely forgot. I wanted to fix the case. Oh, come on then. Come on. You got this thing flapping about. All done. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.